We continued on our journey and went to Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump. This was added as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1981 and is located about an hour's drive from Lethbridge. On our way, we passed by a small bison ranch. It was nice to see the large animals, and it helped set the mood for what we were about to see. The view from the parking lot showed nearby cattle ranches and the Rocky Mountains in the distance. For those of you who may not have heard of a buffalo jump before, Indigenous people in the plains areas would drive the bison towards a cliff. The animals would then fall to their death, or if they were injured, they would be finished off by the hunters. The bison were then harvested for their meat, skins, and other body parts. Remains of bison were found under Head Smashed In, as well as 2 other nearby jumps in the area. The Wet Locher just over the parking lot, and the Calderwood jump to the north. We had visited this place several years ago, and the museum portion was impressive. I wanted to come back as we were unable to walk on the outside grounds due to a cougar mother and cub being in the area at that time. This time, we were a little frustrated at the warning of a grizzly in the area, but we decided to proceed anyways. We saw a deer grazing in the distance. The first portion of the walk took us down the hill and through a grassy field. Throughout the walk, I kept looking back at the cliffs. The fall plants had lots of ripe berries. The name Head Smashed In is a little bit gory sounding, but it derives from the story of a young man who wanted to see the buffalo jump from the underside. He pressed his body against the cliff and under a ledge, but the falling bison, unfortunately, ended up killing him. When his family found him, his head was smashed in. The grasses were also ripe with their seeds. A gentle wind blew from the west. I should mention that buffalo jumps were not the only technique for hunting bison. Small crevices and valleys would also be used to trip the panicked animals, or hunting in the winter through the deep snow. Buffalo pounds would also be used. The pounds were a round area made of sticks and brush cuttings, and skins would also be used to form a wall. Bison were then corralled and picked off by the hunters. There were a couple of plants I couldn't identify, so if anyone knows, please let me know. I think this one might be an escaped snapdragon. As we continued back up towards the jump, we came across a huge patch of chokecherries. But this is what they used to make with pemmican? To make the pemmican?
Yeah.
Being fall, the chokecherries were now ripe. As I mentioned in the previous video, chokecherries were collected, mashed, and mixed with bison meat to form pemmican. The proximity of the bushes under the cliff shows that the jump was a convenient area for processing the meat after a hunt. The hard pits from the chokecherries would have been discarded, along with the bison parts that don't contain a lot of meat, such as the jaws and the bones. So, over time, the chokecherries thrived, and the cliffs also became smaller. The bone deposits in some areas were around 12 meters or 39 feet deep. Gazing up at the cliffs, it was awe-inspiring to imagine the bison plummeting over the side. It was crucial as well to ensure that no bison escaped, as the knowledge of the dangers of grazing in the area would be passed on, and future herds would avoid that area. Looking at the landscape overall again, I realized I was suddenly able to tell where the potential sites were, and even other patches of chokecherries where seeds had probably washed downstream with the spring runoff. I spotted a hawk perched at the cliff's edge, looking over the vast territory. I felt blessed when it later soared overhead and gave a long power cry. It's just, I don't know, amazing to just piece this together. And of course, seeds washed downstream. There's bushes down in the little valley there. There's a herd of bison, just right, little dots. Amazing to think that they'd herd them over. Except for a few rocks, it would have been hard to tell where the cliff was, especially when you're running at full tilt. There is an area at the top of the cliff where you can see where the drive lanes would have been. I found it fascinating to note that the jump was first used around 3900 BC, so it was used for almost 6,000 years. But there was also a long gap when the jump wasn't used. Archaeologists are still not sure why, whether it was due to changes in bison behavior, climate changes, or other factors. There is still much to be learned, especially from the other nearby jumps. The inside of the museum is pretty amazing. I don't want to show too much, but it tells the history of the jump and gives a good detailing of how life was back in the day. They also have some significant artifacts, including hunting tools, and this hide that was like a calendar, documenting significant events in history. So, if you are in Alberta, this is definitely worth the journey. As always, thanks for watching. Hope to see you on my next adventure as we continue through southern Alberta.